Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us today for this special session of the Africa Football Business Show. Indeed, this is a big one, very special, and with a special guest, a man that needs no introduction to the world of football. It's a real pleasure to have with us today Mr. Arsène Wenger. Of course, as I said, he needs no introduction for those of us who are passionate about the sports and specifically the game of football. So, welcome everybody to the big interview, and we look forward to learning a lot about football and specifically African football and what plans are there specifically from FIFA in terms of developing the game on the continent. But before I go ahead, I'll read Arsene Wenger's bio as a way of introduction, and then probably he'll introduce himself and add a little bit more about what we don't know about him. So if you'll allow me, I will read this. Arsene Wenger holds the record for the most Premier League matches managed after a 22-year spell with Arsenal between 1996 and 2018. Mr. Wenger learned his managerial trade in France with spells in Strasbourg, Cannes, and Nancy before earning a move to League One side AS Monaco. He won the French League Championship in 1988 before moving to Japan 7 years later for an 18-month stint. After joining Arsenal, Arsene, Arsene Wenger did not take long to adapt to life in English football and guided the team to their first Premier League title in the 1997-1998 season. He repeated the feat again in 2001 and 2002 before making history in 2003-2004 season with the Invisibles when he went unbeaten throughout the entire league campaign on their way to sealing their third Premier League crown. The Frenchman has also claimed 7 FA Cups, the most of any manager, and was voted Manager of the Year in 1998, 2002, and 2004. Mr. Wenger became Premier League's longest-serving manager when Sir Alex Ferguson retired at the end of the 2012-2013 season and surpassed his record of matches managed in the Premier League during the 2017-2018 campaign. On April 2018, he announced that he would stand down as manager of Arsenal at the end of season. And in 2019, Mr. Wenger joined FIFA as the chief of global football development um, in Zurich. And that's the reason we have him here with us today. Welcome very much, Mr. Arsène Wenger. Perhaps you can just add a couple of points, probably something we don't know about Mr. Wenger outside of the world of football.
Good morning, good afternoon for some people as well. And it's a pleasure to be with you. You know, I have a special link with African football for a very, very long time. So I'm very happy to contribute to your meeting.
Excellent, Mr. Wenger. So, as you mentioned, you have a very soft spot for African football, African players. Some have even credited you as having changed the perception globally about African players at a time when it was not very fashionable to sign African players in Europe. You gave us George Weah, the first and only to date Ballon d'Or winner. What's your motivation? What motivates your passion behind African football and African players?
I feel first, you know, I'm French, and France had always a link with African football. Even when I was a kid, when I played as well, I played with African players. And after the first players I had in Africa were Fofana, Ikpeba, Mendy, Roger Mendy. And I was always impressed by their passion. They loved to play, you know, they loved the game. I was impressed as well by the creativity, and overall they had imagination. And I like offensive football, so of course I was attracted to that. And I must say as well, I had always good connections with them. For me, it's when I talked with them, I feel I could connect well with them, and I was impressed by that.
Excellent. It's good that you note the creativity, the talent, and the passion that Africa or African players are usually famed for. Of course, your managerial career, you spent a lot of time at Arsenal, 16 years in total. And while there, You gave us some of the best talents we have seen coming from Africa. Namely, you had people like Nwanko Kanu, Emmanuel Adebayor, Alex Song, Lauren from Cameroon, and usually these were not the world class players when you got them, but you made them into global superstars. And some have attributed this to your visionary approach to player development. And it's not just about African players. In general, you appreciate development of players as opposed to getting established superstars. Um, why this approach? Why do you insist on youth development? And what impact did this have on the Arsenal as a club and also the English Premier League?
Well, I would say, first of all, one of the beauties of my job is you can influence people's life, and you can have a real influence, even more, even bigger, if you can transform players, you can help them to develop their talent. And that is more the case maybe for African players because they had at the time less chances. You speak about George Weah, I took him at the age of 23, but he had a huge desire. He had, of course, the talent, the raw talent, but he had that huge desire to become a player and to work hard. And when you can help them to develop, I think it's a great satisfaction. And I was myself as a young boy in France with no possibility and no coach and no chance to develop, and I always thought I started as a youth team development in Strasbourg, and I always thought that to give people a chance is one of the responsibilities we have, because a boy has a talent, but he needs as well to meet a chance. And maybe we speak about that later, but I'm responsible for a program now that is mainly targeting to give a chance to people.
Excellent. A few words that you mentioned there about transforming lives, giving people a chance. I'm especially keen on that issue about transformation because, incidentally, that happens to be the tagline of the mantra for the Football Foundation for Africa over the next 10 years, transforming our game, transforming Africa's game. And there's a flip side, perhaps, to your approach, especially when it comes to youth development and African players. A lot of clubs, especially in Europe and now increasingly in Asia and other parts of the world, are usually keen on getting African players at a very early age. And usually, for lack of a better word, they get them cheap from the continent and then develop them and sell them at a much higher price. This is something you mentioned during last year's CAF Congress, where you mentioned that the first move from Africa to Europe or any other part of the world, on average, is about 300,000 euro. But the second move, on average, gets to about 3 million euros. And if you look at this keenly, it starves the continent of much needed financial resources. What do you think the continent should do to change this so that those who are training, developing players at the early age and the system itself benefits from these exported talents?
Well, as you said, the first move is usually the cheap one, and the second move inside Europe, from Europe to Europe, the first move from Africa to Europe is around 300,000 euros on average. And the second move from Europe to Europe is 10 times more. So what can you do about that? I first believe is create stronger clubs in Africa, but they are not in a position where they have to give in because they have not the resources to say no. And after that, to create maybe a stronger league. We speak about the Super League in Africa to create strong clubs to keep their own players longer. And they have not to say yes always when people are turning up with some proposals. So I would say strengthen the whole continent is certainly the biggest target. After that, maybe FIFA is thinking about at the moment give better training compensation and maybe with some food for thought sometimes to make sure that we get that compensation paid. It's not always, you do not always find where the boy has been educated. And FIFA is taking responsibility now with a clearinghouse to make sure that the training education is better, higher, and that it gets paid by every move. And before, only the first move, the club got paid. Now I think it's with a big thinking about that. But overall, I would say two things are important: strengthen the financial power of Africa with stronger clubs, and two, maybe create better rules that the clubs get a better compensation even on the second move.
Excellent. Those are really great initiatives from FIFA, and we look forward to seeing this happening, especially on increasing training compensation on subsequent moves across Europe. But then again, you mentioned something very important about strengthening the ecosystem in Africa so that we keep players here for longer. I think that is very crucial in terms of transforming the game on the continent. That said, despite trying to strengthen clubs on the continent, we are aware that because of the way the global industry is positioned, many people have invested in football academies, private entities, to see how they can develop and sell talent out of Africa. What plans does FIFA have in place to kind of regulate this space when it comes to football academies? One, to ensure that even as we sell players, the benefits that accrue actually benefit the whole ecosystem. Because when it comes to Africa, we are thinking of things such as infrastructure. But if the monies are always landing in private hands, then it becomes difficult to get the same. Are there any plans by FIFA to regulate the academy space, the grassroots space, to ensure funds that are gained from selling players actually go into the whole ecosystem?
Yes, thank you, Brian, for that question, because that's very close to my heart, that problem. I must say, I might be a bit longer, but I just want to explain what we did. We analyzed football in 205 countries in the world. And what came out is that there's a huge correlation between the quality of the education and the ranking of a first team in the FIFA ranking. The best 20 clubs, the best 20 countries in the world, best ranked countries, have a best youth program development, best identification of talent, the best coaching, educating, and the best coaches. So that means once we know that there's a big correlation between the quality of the education and the results at the top level, we have a clear task in front of us, is to make sure that and I call this program Every Talent a Chance. And I find it absolutely a disgrace that today where you're born has a big influence on the capacity to develop your football skills, And that's why I used the example of Kylian Mbappe to say it's not right, but it depends where you're born, how good you will become. And we develop a program here, and we will move inside every country. And we have two targets. First, we will support financially every federation who agrees with our program. We want to create excellent center in every country and identify the talent, get the best with the best, give them financial support, educate the coaches, and develop the players. I feel we have to start first with a restricted group in countries where where grassroots football is not so developed, and at the same time develop grassroots football. But I'm convinced that our program that is called Every Talent a Chance has a huge responsibility, and Africa at the moment is a huge target for us as well. The rest of the world as well, but in Africa we'll move in 2023 and create these centers, and I believe as well that it is very important, as you said, that the federations are responsible for the education. Why? Because that they have to control the education and not private entities. Because private entities, I don't say they work badly, but so some of them, their target is to make quick money and quick fix. What we want is FIFA has gone into an educational purpose with an educational responsibility, and we want to put education first. And for that, it is very important that the federations cooperate with us to take responsibility of that education.
Okay. And now that we speak about federations, what is being done to empower, especially our federations, so that they're able to take up these tasks? We are aware that the proliferation of private entities running football on the continent, to some extent, has been occasioned by the perceived lack of capacity in our federations. And it's not just beyond finances. You know, when we go into the managerial
Yeah.
run the business, what plans are there for FIFA?
What's going to happen is that we will put people inside the countries to cooperate with the federation and make sure that the federations take the control of the program, and that the federations are the masters of the program and of the excellence center. And that's why I believe that it is important inside the countries as well that uh, the private academies get the agreement, cannot work without the agreement of FIFA. That means that it is a kind of guarantee for the quality of the education, that some wild initiatives have to be banned when they are not agreed by the federation. We have a huge responsibility there because it's about children, it's about giving a chance to people in their life, and make sure that they are properly educated. Not all of them will become great football players, but the educational responsibility is very important.
Excellent, excellent. We are really looking forward as a continent for some of these initiatives, programs to kick off. But at the same time, we believe it's important to start having these conversations. And that's why at the Football Foundation for Africa, we're organizing the first Africa Football Business Summit in Kigali. Really a platform to see how we can bring together different stakeholders to discuss development of football on the continent from different perspectives. And it will be interesting, or rather, we'll explore. If you could be able to join us, it will be a real pleasure. I know we had started it for September, but now we have moved it to October, and we'll communicate more about this. And some of the other topics that we are going to discuss at the summit, including coaching and coaching education in Africa, player development. What do you see as some of the main challenges that Africa needs to address? You know, the immediate needs of the continent in order to have a shift. Because when you look at football in Africa, we need kind of a disruption or a paradigm shift in the football space for us to start really exploring or exploiting our potential. And these were captured in your comments about Kylian Mbappe recently. And of course, there was some criticism coming from some quarters, understandably. But probably with this opportunity, you can clarify and also identify the key challenges that you are facing, or that FIFA is facing and is looking to address in the next couple of years.
No, my comment on that was absolutely. misinterpreted, because I wanted to say that it's not right that every talent doesn't get a chance, and in some countries you get a better chance than in others, and I want to work hard to change that. And football is the only collective sport that is played with your feet, and unfortunately, between 5 and 12 years old, to develop that coordination and that skill is very important. And I would say, because of a conclusion of our analysis, I see that many people don't get proper coaching between 5 and 12 years old. The second thing that is very important, and that you did not speak about in your question, is the identification of talent. This is very important, because one of the important things is to develop people, is to put them the best with the best. That's why our target is to create excellence center, because we want to regroup the best and give them quality education. And overall, of course, you need to develop grassroots football at the same time, but you have to start somewhere. And that's why I believe that we want to identify people that we are around the age of 12, 13 years old, give them 5-year education. And if you look at our program at FIFA, we want to create a World Cup for under 17 every year. So at the end of this program of education, you would have a world competition and allow people to show their talent and to develop through competition. But at the start, what is the most important is education from 5 to 12, and then from 12 to 17, and after you're ready to compete,
Excellent. I think it's a very ambitious project, and I think that's one of the things that the continent needs to address. We ourselves, as Africa, need to be ambitious and confident in order to realize some of these plans, even as they come from FIFA. I'll just divert a bit and take a bit of a side route. When it comes to the continent, I say it's ambitious because Africa in itself is huge. As a geography. And if you have noticed, even some of the players that we mentioned at the onset, those whom you have worked with, the likes of George Weah, Victor Ikpeba, Nwankwo Kanu, most of them are coming from West Africa.
Yes.
West Africa. And of course, we also see good development in Northern Africa. This has led many to believe, or rather to have this perception, that there is an imbalance with little representation or talent coming from East Africa, East and Central Africa, as well as Southern Africa. So, what plans are there by FIFA to address this perceived imbalance? I say perceived because when you talk to West Africans as well, they say despite the talent they have abroad, on the ground locally, their football is still not at the level they expect. So what are you doing to address this perceived imbalance in the football system in Africa?
Look, we offer exactly the same help to every country. Are you from West or from East Africa, from North or from South Africa? It doesn't matter. What we want to do, I'm convinced that the good players exist where you have quality of education, And what we want to do is to educate, create programs that educate people. And I told you before, we have noticed that the best countries in the world are the countries who have a better education. So what the conclusion is simple. Let's give a better education to every single country. Like you said, football, you have 54 countries in Africa, you have 55 countries in Europe. But Africa is much bigger. So that's why, because I think Africa is much bigger and some countries are huge, let's start to create centers where you can regroup the best players together, because we are spread all over the country. Let's regroup the best players first, and at the same time create competitions for young girls and young boys, and give them a chance to express themselves by playing football. That's not the case at the moment. And people who criticized my example of Mbappe, don't know really the state of football in Africa. When you're a young boy in Africa, at 5, 6, 7 years old, you're not everywhere with a good chance to play football. That's what we want to change. And it's in everything exactly the same. With only one tool is quality of education, and that's what we want to develop. And that's why we need, of course, to put the investment in the quality people, in the equality of the education, and create centers where people can play, and countries where people have organized competitions. I speak a lot to people in Africa. They tell me, people who work in Africa, they say there's not organized competitions everywhere at the age of 12, 13, 14, 15 years old.
Super, Mr. Wenger. I think that's excellent. And better education is indeed required on the continent. And of course, we cannot end this conversation without addressing a very critical, very important demographic on the continent or globally, and that is the women's game in Africa. What level of targeted investment in terms of financial resources and effort is FIFA prepared to make towards leveling the playing field for both boys and girls? How is FIFA going to address the gender issue when it comes to the football space?
Look, I love that you raise that subject, because for the girls it's even worse. They have less opportunities to play, and FIFA will support exactly the same the girls than the boys. We'll create excellent center for the girls as well. We educate coaches, and the target is exactly the same. There's no difference, just that they are even more behind on the talent development scheme than the boys, and the work is even harder. But what I like when you speak with girls, they have a passion. They want to develop, they want to play, and they want the opportunities. It's refreshing to see how much they want to play, and overall, I believe that all over the world we have the same responsibility. It's not only in Africa where not everybody gets an opportunity. There are countries all over the world where you don't get the opportunity, and we want to give that opportunity to develop on every continent. And we know, we have diagnosed what is the state of the game in every single country. We have sent a report to every country to tell them exactly what we have noticed, and how we can help them. And girls are a big part of it, because they deserve exactly the same chances than the boys.
Excellent. We'll just take two questions before we conclude, and I already have one. I don't know from who. Perhaps it'd be good if my colleagues can also put the names. How can Africa maximize on its existing resources to develop its own football identity, Mr. Wenger?
Well, by creating the structures and the competitions to express their qualities, that is the most important. I believe that Africa has a special culture, and if they educate well their youth, they will be capable to express that culture. When you look, basically, many Africans as well have immigrated to Europe, and they are doing extremely well by keeping their qualities, by keeping their culture, and by adapting to European culture. And if they develop their qualities in Africa, it would be exactly the same. That's why, Brian, it is important as well that we develop strong clubs in Africa, because they will take charge as well of the education. They will help us to educate people. But you need, for example, you have the same number of countries in Africa than in Europe, and we need, for example, 20 strong clubs in Africa. Once you will have 20 strong clubs inside the continent, they will develop players as well. And that is for me the main target as well on football. In football, is one side is the education of the youth, and on the other side, strengthen the clubs. And when the countries will be stronger, let's not forget that in the next World Cup, we'll move up to 48. With Africa, we'll have 9.5 countries qualified. So there's an incentive there as well to do more for development, because the countries have a better chance to go to the World Cup and to shine. And so this whole thing together, more incentives to go to the World Cup, bigger, stronger clubs by creating a Super League maybe in Africa. And what I'm responsible for mainly is to develop the education. I think these three things together can be a huge boost for Africa.
Thank you. That question was from Gabriel Tito from Kenya, and we have a question from Edem Spio from Ghana. Are there opportunities for young, passionate professionals from Africa to be part of the management and business side of FIFA? That's from Edem Spio in Ghana, and I don't think it's just only FIFA, but when it comes to the running of the business of the game, are there opportunities for young?
Look,
Passionate
Brian, I like that question. I will tell you why. Because I have one of my former players who was on a cooperation program in Africa. And he told me he worked for 6 to 8 months in Africa, cooperating with some federations. And I think one of them was in Guinea. And he told me they found top coaches in Africa. He said they educated coaches who were of top level, but after they had no opportunity to grow, because they have no competitions there. So, and no clubs who had the enough financial power to pay them. And that's why I say once we create stronger clubs, you have the quality of the coaching is in Africa. I'm 100% convinced of that. But we have to create opportunities to give them a chance to show their talent and to develop. And one of the targets of us moving into Africa is as well to educate the coaches. But after that, if we create these centers of excellence, they will have an opportunity to continue. They will have to do the work. We are in there for the start. We put coaches in, but the main target is to educate local coaches, and they take charge of the development of their football.
Actually, so you have heard from the professor himself, Edem, that yeah, even on the continent there are opportunities to develop beyond just the playing onto the management side of it, to develop competitions. There's real opportunity for entrepreneurship there. I see. So thank you very much, Mr. Wenger, for pointing that out. Of course, we respect your time, and thank you very much once again for making the time to join us. We are over time now, going on 40 minutes. So, as I mentioned earlier, next month, or rather in October in Kigali, we are organizing the inaugural Africa Football Business Summit. And with the summit, we are looking to create a platform to bring together the football management community in Africa with experts from other stakeholder communities to kickstart meaningful conversations and networks, and also try to mobilize investment to develop Africa's football, because we believe we need a concerted effort to really mobilize resources for the continent. Why do you think such platforms are crucial, and what can we ensure? What can we do to ensure that these events and future editions positively impact the African football ecosystem? And this, Wenger, also is an open invitation to you. We're happy to work around your calendar to ensure that you attend the inaugural Africa Football Business Summit.
Thank you very much. And I believe that's very important to have this kind of exchanges, and of course to continue to develop informations inside Africa between people who are responsible and educate people. We can always all learn every day, and we learn as well through exchange of information.
Excellent. So thank you very much, Mr. Wenger. It was a pleasure to host you today. We will keep in touch, and we look forward to the work that you're planning for Africa. And yeah, see you soon, Mr.
Thank you
Wenger.
very much. I look forward to it as well, and I look forward as well to see how well the African teams will do at the World Cup in Doha.
Excellent. Of course, we cannot conclude without mentioning the teams that will be there in November and December, World Cup 2022 in Qatar. Of course, we wish all our African representatives a good World Cup, but more important, we want to enjoy good football, and this is what we are looking forward to. So, with that, our viewers, thank you very much for joining us today. Of course, today we expected a record attendance in terms of live participation, and that just shows the appreciation that we have for you, Mr. Wenger, on the continent, and we look forward to interacting with you further. So for now, goodbye everybody, and see you on the next edition of the Africa Football Business Show. We believe that will be before we have our summit in Kigali, Rwanda. So thank you very much, everybody. This was Brian Mesala, your host, CEO and founder of the Football Foundation for Africa, and also initiator of the Africa Football Business. So we also take this time to appreciate our sponsors who make this possible, primarily OTB Africa, Palmas, and iSport LAN. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you on the next episode.